Hi guys, sorry to interrupt your viewing, but please subscribe to the channel and like this video. Thank you.
There are a few sentences in life that hit you like a slap, not because they're loud or cruel on the surface, but because they come wrapped in quiet shame and familiar voices. My sister didn't scream at me, didn't call me names, didn't even sound angry. That might have made it easier to handle. Instead, she said 10 words that carved a trench straight through my chest like a hot blade. She said, "We didn't invite you because you'd embarrass the family." And just like that, the ground under my feet shifted. It was my cousin Rachel who spilled it, not even realizing the bomb she was dropping. She had called me all giddy, bouncing off the walls about the wedding of the decade. She called it. "You'll die when you see her dress," she squealed, and I laughed along until something snagged. "What's the date again?" I asked casually, though my stomach had already tightened. "June 3rd, she said. "Same as your parents' anniversary. Kinda poetic, right?" I was quiet for a second too long. I didn't get an invitation. There was a silence on her end that said it all. "Oh, wait, really?" I didn't say much else. We hung up, and I sat there in my kitchen, surrounded by stacked boxes of artisanal jam jars and hand-lettered menus for a corporate brunch I was catering the next morning. My cat, Murphy, rubbed against my leg, completely unaware that I had just taken a sucker punch from the person who was supposed to have my back for life. I tried to tell myself it was a mistake. Maybe the invitation got lost in the mail. Maybe she sent it to the wrong address. But deep down, I knew better. 3 days later, I got my answer. She called me herself. That was rare enough. I stared at her name on the screen, Caitlin, like it was some kind of ghost. I answered, my voice steady. "Hey," she said. "Hey." There was that awkward pause, like we were strangers pretending to be close. "I heard you found out," she said finally. "About the wedding." I did. Another pause. I could hear her breathing. "Look, I just didn't want things to get uncomfortable. You know how Mom is. And you're always doing your own thing, and I didn't think it'd be your scene." My own thing. Yeah, like the food truck stuff. The catering company? "Yeah," she said, like the words tasted weird in her mouth. "It's just the vibe, you know?" Ah, there it was. The vibe. I felt my throat go tight. Not because I didn't see it coming, but because I had hoped, foolishly, that maybe I was just being paranoid. Maybe she had a reason, an emergency, a mistake, a logistical error. But no. The truth was, in her eyes, my job wasn't glamorous enough. It wasn't respectable. Never mind that I built my business from the back of a rusty Ford step van, selling sliders to drunk 20-somethings at midnight until I had the cash to get my own kitchen. Never mind that I'd hired 4 people last year and just landed a contract with the mayor's office for weekly event catering. To her, I was still the girl in the apron. The one who smelled like barbecue and had oil under her nails. The one who made food for fun, not someone who wore blazers and held wine glasses by the stem. So I just said, "Got it." She rushed to cover the silence. "It's nothing personal. We just wanted the vibe to be classy," I finished. She didn't argue. "I hope it's everything you want," I said, and I hung up. I didn't cry. Not then. I made myself a drink. I sat in the backyard, under those stupid string lights I'd put up for ambience last spring, and I watched the moon come out like it had no idea my sister had just drawn a line in the sand. I'd spent 34 years trying to prove I was more than what people assumed. More than the kid who got B-minuses, more than the girl who dropped out of business school to find herself. I found myself all right, elbow deep in pulled pork and spreadsheet hell and Saturday mornings at the farmer's market. But apparently, that version of me wasn't good enough to sit at a table covered in white roses and gold place settings. The thing is, I didn't yell. I didn't fight. I didn't text her a long message about how she made me feel like dirt. I didn't call my mom and demand answers. I didn't burn bridges. I went quiet. The kind of quiet that says, "Okay, you made your choice. Now I'll make mine." And for a few weeks, I meant it. I buried myself in work, took on too many bookings, ran myself ragged. I stacked wedding cakes with perfect rosettes and served hors d'oeuvres to people who tipped too much and called me sweetheart like I was their waitress. But silence, I've learned, is not the same as peace. And sometimes the universe, or fate, or karma, whatever name you want to give that cosmic sense of justice, decides to throw you a bone when you least expect it. Because 3 weeks before her wedding, while I was rolling out hand-cut ravioli at midnight and thinking of anything but her, my phone rang again. This time, it wasn't her name. It was an unknown number. A local area code. "Hi," the voice said. "We got your name from a friend. We're looking for a caterer, and we're kind of in a tight spot." I wiped my hands on my apron, not thinking much of it. "Sure," I said. "Who's the client?" And when she said the name, Caitlin Jennings, something inside me clicked. No rage. No panic. Just a low, slow grin that stretched across my face like a sunrise after a storm. I took a breath. And I said, "Tell me more." After that call with my sister, the one where she basically told me I didn't fit into the curated little wedding fantasy she'd built like a Pinterest board come to life, I went dark. I didn't text. I didn't call. I didn't even send my usual sarcastic memes to our cousin group chat, the ones I knew used to make her laugh whether she admitted it or not. I didn't want her laughter. I didn't want her guilt. I wanted her silence to match mine. And it did, at least for a while. I thought maybe someone would reach out, maybe our mom or one of the other siblings would ask what was going on, but instead, it was like the family decided to tiptoe around me. Like I was a bomb someone had left under the table and everyone was waiting to see when I'd go off. I didn't. I was calm, frighteningly so, and I think that scared them more than if I'd blown up. At Sunday dinner, which I skipped, obviously, my absence got mentioned exactly once, according to my brother. He texted me later, a simple "you good," and I gave him the classic thumbs up emoji and left it at that. No one asked why Caitlin had cut me out. No one challenged her decision. They were all too afraid to poke holes in the pretty white veil of her wedding plans. I buried myself in work. The season was picking up: spring weddings, baby showers, graduation brunches. I worked from sunup to midnight some days, testing new glaze recipes, managing vendor contracts, training new hires. There's something about building your own business that makes the betrayal of being labeled an embarrassment all the more bitter. It's not just personal, it's professional. You start to wonder if every client sees you that way too. One afternoon, about 3 weeks out from her wedding date, I was elbow deep in prep for a high-end garden party when Rachel called again. I hesitated before picking up, but curiosity got the better of me. "Hey," she said. "So, you haven't heard anything about the wedding lately, right?" I kept my tone flat. "Nope. Not on the guest list, remember." She winced audibly. "Yeah, that still sucks. But you didn't hear it from me, seriously. Don't repeat this, but there's been some drama." Now, Rachel's the type who uses the word drama when someone dies, so I knew this was big. "Go on," I said, pretending not to care. "Well, apparently, the venue double-booked or failed a fire inspection or something, no one's totally sure. All I know is Caitlin and Brad are freaking out because the place shut them down last minute." I blinked. Shut down like, permanently? Temporarily. But not in time for the wedding. They've got less than 3 weeks and nowhere to go. Mom's about to have a nervous breakdown. I nearly dropped my chef's knife. Not because I was happy, but because, honestly, it felt like the first time reality had touched their fantasy. All this time, they'd been up there in their ivory tower, judging who belonged and who didn't. Now they were stuck on the ground with the rest of us. Still, I didn't say much. Just let her talk, let her ramble about chaos and contingency plans and how expensive it was to try and rebook something that last minute. Then I said, "Well, I hope it works out for them," and hung up before she could say anything else. Here's the thing about me, I'm not big on revenge. At least not the shouting, table-flipping kind. But I do believe in letting people feel the weight of their own choices. That kind of silence? It echoes. So I kept doing my job. I catered a rehearsal dinner for a couple who'd met in prison. I served mini quiches to a bachelorette party of 50-something women who flirted with my busboy. I smiled through it all, kept my head down, and swallowed every bitter little thought like a pill. I told myself, you've got too much going on to worry about her mess. And I meant it. Honestly, I hadn't talked to my sister in maybe 6 or 7 weeks, so almost a year. Wait, that doesn't sound right. Whatever. You get the point. But then it happened. I was standing outside my kitchen truck, going over a delivery manifest with one of my staff, when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I usually let those go to voicemail, but something about the area code caught my attention. It was local. I answered with a short, tired hello. A woman's voice came through, pleasant but rushed. Hi, we got your number from a friend. You're a caterer, right? We've got a bit of an emergency situation. I wiped my hands on my apron and said, that depends. What kind of emergency? She hesitated just a moment too long before saying, the wedding we're helping with just lost their caterer and venue at the same time. It's for a Caitlin Jennings. That name, my sister's full name, formal and clean and so goddamn smug, landed in my ear like a firecracker. I didn't speak for a full second. Maybe 2. Hello, the woman asked, probably thinking we got disconnected. I cleared my throat. Yeah, I'm a caterer. Oh, thank God. Can we talk options? We're really desperate here. I took a long breath, looking up at the spring sky, pale blue and smugly bright, like even the weather had something to say about this turn of fate. Sure, I said, a slow grin spreading across my face. Let's talk. It didn't take long for the panic to set in on their end, not after that first call where they casually dropped my sister's name like it was any other client in a long line of desperate brides. The woman on the phone was polite, too polite, the kind of customer service voice that comes out when someone's teetering on the edge of disaster and trying not to show it. She said they needed full-service catering, staff, and preferably access to a venue or at least some kind of setup space, all within 48 hours. 2 days. Not even a full weekend. Now, in this business, you get all kinds of last-minute scrambles, flaky planners, unexpected weather, vendors who ghost without warning, but this wasn't just a hiccup. This was full-on meltdown territory. And she was calling me, unknowingly, to mop it up. The irony didn't just taste sweet. It tasted like a perfectly layered tiramisu, rich with justice and a touch of revenge espresso. I didn't let on, of course. I kept my voice smooth and professional, asking all the right questions like I didn't already know who the bride was or what she thought of me. I asked for the guest count, dietary restrictions, color scheme, serving preferences, all the usual run-of-the-mill things a caterer asks when they're deciding whether or not to save someone's entire wedding from going down in flames. And then I dropped it in, casual as you like. Just to confirm, who's the client? I asked, flipping open my schedule even though I already knew damn well I'd make the time. She hesitated, and I could hear the sound of her flipping through notes or maybe checking a screen. Then she said it. Caitlin Jennings and Brad Taylor. For a second, I didn't say anything. I just stared at the name written in my own handwriting on a post-it note that had been stuck to my fridge for months. Caitlin Jennings. My sister. My blood. My embarrassment. Is everything okay? The woman asked, trying to fill the silence. I cleared my throat and did what any professional would do. I lied. Yeah. Sorry. That name just sounded familiar for a second. My business partner, Cam, was standing across the kitchen with a stack of invoices in her hands and a skeptical look that could cut drywall. She'd heard the whole thing, eyes narrowing when she heard the name. The moment I hung up the call, she slammed the papers on the counter and crossed her arms. You're not seriously gonna pass this up, she said, eyebrows raised. Please tell me you're not about to say no to the woman who told you your actual job was a family disgrace. I didn't answer right away. I sat down, looked at the calendar, looked at the list of staff we had on call, the food orders we could reroute, the prep stations we could reset. It would be tight. It would mean late nights and early mornings and no sleep. But it was possible. Cam leaned forward, voice dropping to something between a whisper and a war cry. "This is your moment, babe. I mean, how often does karma deliver itself like this on a silver goddamn platter?" I looked at her and nodded slowly. "Full contract. Non-refundable." She grinned, already reaching for her laptop. "I'll get the invoice started." We sent over the quote, top-tier pricing, holiday rate, emergency rush fees, and a standard clause stating all deposits were non-refundable and payment in full was due by the morning of the event. Within 2 hours, the contract was signed, the deposit wired, and the order forms were being filled out like clockwork. They didn't even blink at the numbers, which told me just how panicked they really were. Rich people always open their wallets when their reputations are on the line. The client liaison, the woman who called me, never mentioned Caitlin's relationship to me, which meant one of two things. Either Caitlin hadn't realized who she was hiring, or she'd realized too late and didn't want to admit it. I didn't care either way. I had a job to do, and I was going to do it flawlessly. But that didn't mean I couldn't have a little fun while I was at it. It started with the uniform. Now, normally, I wear standard black chef attire for gigs, crisp jacket, black pants, sensible shoes, no logos. But for this wedding, I had something different in mind. A special edition of our team polos, bold red script across the back with the words "Lick the Plate Catering" embroidered in full, and my name underneath in bright white thread. On the front pocket, I had our company motto stitched in cursive, "Good food. No apologies." Cam raised her eyebrows when I handed out the shirts the night before the wedding. "Subtle," she said, grinning like she already knew how this was going to play out. "Just enough," I said. She wanted me to disappear. "I'll make sure I'm the first thing they see." The kitchen buzzed that night like a beehive on caffeine. We prepped through the evening, chopping, marinating, layering desserts with the kind of precision normally reserved for military operations or space launches. It wasn't just about serving good food. It was about showing up and owning the space they thought I didn't deserve to be in. I went home that night, showered, and laid the uniform out on the bed like a battlesuit. My cat jumped up next to it and sniffed the fabric, then looked at me like he knew something was coming. And something was. Tomorrow, I would walk into that venue with my chin high, my apron tied tight, and a team that could run circles around half the overpriced caterers in the tri-state area. And Caitlin? She wouldn't see me coming. But she'd never forget it. The morning of the wedding, I woke up before sunrise with that sharp clarity you only get on days where something big is about to happen, like when you're standing on the edge of something long overdue. I didn't even need an alarm. My body just knew. I stretched, brewed coffee, and looked out the kitchen window as the early light spilled in soft and pale, the kind of light that tries to convince you it's going to be a peaceful day. But today wasn't about peace, it was about presence. I packed the last of the dessert trays, checked over the fresh floral garnishes, and loaded the final elements of the wedding cake into our transport van with gloved hands and a steel heart. My team was already buzzing in the lot behind the kitchen, Kem barking out orders like a seasoned general, trays being double-checked, inventory tallied. The energy was electric, and everyone knew what today meant, even if I hadn't said it out loud. They all knew who the bride was. The venue was a rustic vineyard-style hall just outside town, picturesque in the kind of way you see in bridal magazines and aspirational Pinterest boards. Ivy-covered walls, pale stone, those tall French doors that make everything feel expensive. We arrived 2 hours before schedule, because of course we did. Perfection doesn't run late. I stepped out of the van wearing my crisp, customized company polo, the bold logo on the back announcing exactly who I was and why I was there. No anonymity. No shrinking. This time, I wasn't hiding behind kitchen doors or waiting in back halls. I was front and center. The cake was a 3-tier vanilla almond with champagne buttercream and gold flake detail, stacked with a precision that would make a surgeon jealous. I insisted on carrying it myself, not because I didn't trust my team, hell, they're the best in the business, but because I wanted that moment. I wanted to feel the weight of it in my arms, step by step, as I walked through those massive oak doors and made my entrance into the hall where my name had been erased. The room was already filling up, guests mingling with flutes of sparkling rose, florals dripping from every table, soft music humming through the air like a spell. I caught eyes instantly. Some people just stared at the logo on my chest, reading the name like it meant something. Others narrowed their eyes in recognition, the wheels in their heads spinning as they tried to place me. And then I saw her. Caitlin. She stood near the head table, veil pinned just so, makeup flawless, her dress like something out of a couture fairy tale. For a second, I almost couldn't breathe, not from nerves, but from the sheer absurdity of it all. The girl who once shared a bunk bed with me now stood in a white cathedral of a dress, frozen mid-sentence as she recognized me holding her damn wedding cake. She blinked, lips parted like she was about to say something, then snapped her jaw shut. I walked right up to the dessert table, carefully setting the cake down, then turned to face her directly. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't make a scene. I didn't need to. You said I'd embarrass you, right? I said, my voice low but cutting clean through the room. Don't worry, this embarrassment serves killer cake. The words hit her like a glass of cold water. Her face twitched, just slightly, as the guests nearest us turned their heads like a school of synchronized fish. The whispers started almost immediately, tiny little gusts of gossip blowing across the tables. She didn't respond. What could she possibly say? That she hadn't known it was me? That she still didn't want me there? That she needed me now even if she couldn't stand the sight of me? Cam swept in behind me with a full tray of smoked salmon crostini, shooting me a sideways smirk before sliding off into the kitchen setup like nothing was happening. Professionalism, after all, is still the name of the game. The next 2 hours were a blur of motion and tension, staff gliding between tables with trays, drink service running like a well-oiled machine, our kitchen team moving like dancers behind the scenes. It was one of the best-run events I'd ever coordinated, and the irony wasn't lost on anyone. We were flawless. We were quiet excellence. We were everything she thought I couldn't be. At one point, my mother pulled me aside. She wore her hair up and her expression tight, the kind of tight she reserves for funerals and tax audits. Her voice was low, eyes sharp. You had no right to come here like this, she said, gripping my arm with that maternal force that pretends to be gentle. I pulled my arm free and met her stare without blinking, and she had no right to decide I wasn't family. She said I'd ruin her perfect day. I'm the reason it's still happening at all. She's your sister, she said, as if that explained anything. No, I said, she's the person who told me I didn't belong. Today, I'm just the caterer. Just like she wanted. I walked away before she could say anything else. We served dinner flawlessly. Balsamic glazed chicken, roasted seasonal vegetables, fresh herb risotto, each plate a masterpiece. Guests complimented the food without knowing who I was, and some who did know had the decency to keep it to themselves. But the whispers were everywhere. You could feel them buzzing just under the sound of clinking glasses. Once dessert was served and the last plate cleared, I signaled to Cam that we were ready to pack down. I didn't linger. I didn't gloat. I just looked across the hall one last time and locked eyes with Caitlin, still seated at the head table, a porcelain smile frozen on her face. I gave her a nod. Not of respect, just acknowledgement. You see me now, don't you? Then I turned and walked out the same doors I entered, into the cooling dusk, the sky streaked with orange and lavender like some kind of sign that the day was finally done. Or maybe just beginning. What happened after we left? Well, that part caught me off guard. Because while I thought I'd delivered quiet revenge with style and restraint, someone else at that wedding had filmed the whole moment. And they posted it. By the next morning, my inbox was full, my phone buzzing nonstop, and my company website had triple the usual traffic. Turns out, when you serve cold cake with a side of redemption, people eat it up. I always thought that weddings, no matter how fancy or messy or over the top, had a way of fading into private memory once the cake was cut and the bouquet had been caught by some reluctant cousin. But this one didn't fade. Not this time. This wedding, her wedding, spread like wildfire through our town and beyond, not because of the florals or the dress or even the dramatic venue swap, but because someone, bless their nosy little heart, had pulled out their phone at the exact right moment. There I was, in full catering uniform, walking through the reception hall carrying that towering cake like a statement piece. And right as I dropped the now famous line, "You said I'd embarrass you, right?" Don't worry, this embarrassment serves killer cake. Someone caught it, recorded it, and uploaded it. Probably thought they were just catching some light wedding drama to show their friends later. They had no idea what they'd done. Within 24 hours, it was all over Facebook. Then Instagram. Then the local subreddit. Screenshots of the moment circulated with captions like "Bride gets roasted by sister she didn't invite" and "Caterer serves revenge with buttercream." The clip didn't go viral nationwide or anything, but in our part of the state, it caught fire. People I hadn't spoken to in years were tagging me. Former clients sent emails telling me they'd always known I was a badass. Hell, even my old high school English teacher commented with, "Remind me never to cross you." Of course, not all of it was applause. Some folks, especially the kind who think weddings are sacred and that family drama should stay hidden like mold in the drywall, called me petty. Said I'd ruined her day, made it all about myself, stole her thunder on what was supposed to be the happiest moment of her life. But you know what? Thunder doesn't get stolen. It gets handed over when you pretend someone doesn't exist and then beg them to save your ass when things fall apart. My inbox was a war zone of praise and judgment. And my calendar? Packed. Fully booked for 3 straight months within 48 hours of that video going up. The number of corporate events, bridal parties, even baby showers that wanted the badass caterer with a cake comeback was unbelievable. Some were curious. Some just wanted to watch me work. But all of them paid top dollar, and not a single one asked me to hide who I was. Meanwhile, my family fractured into 2 messy camps. On one side, the "you did what you had to do" crowd, which included Rachel, my brother, and, surprisingly, my dad, who sent a text that just said, "Didn't say it then, but I'm proud of you." On the other side were the pearl clutchers, my mother, some aunts, a couple cousins, who claimed I brought shame and humiliated my sister on the most important day of her life. As if she hadn't already humiliated me by pretending I didn't belong. As if I was supposed to just disappear and stay gone like some dirty secret. And then came the text. It showed up 3 days later, from Caitlin, short and sharp as broken glass. "I hope you're happy." No hello. No explanation. No attempt to understand or admit or even talk like people who grew up under the same roof. Just those 5 words. Condensed rage wrapped in a white silk bow. I stared at it for a long while. I typed replies and deleted them. Typed new ones, meaner ones, then erased them too. I could have said 1,000 things. Could have dropped screenshots of the contract she signed, reminded her how I literally saved her wedding from falling into chaos. Could have rubbed it in, could have told her about the bookings, the business boom, the people cheering me on. But I didn't. Instead, I did one thing. The next morning, I packed up a slice of the wedding cake, the real thing, not the leftovers we usually send out for guests, and drove it to her house. I left it on her porch in a white box with no note, no name, nothing but a single fork taped to the top. A silent message. One last taste. One final bite of what she tried to reject. Was it petty? Sure. Maybe. I won't lie. I thought about that slice the whole way home, wondering if she opened it, if she threw it out, if she stared at it the same way I'd stared at that wedding invitation I never got. Revenge doesn't always come in explosions. Sometimes it comes layered in buttercream and silence. I still don't know if she gets it. I don't know if she watches that video and burns with regret, or if she just tells herself I crashed her party out of spite. Maybe in her head, I'm still the villain, selfish, attention-hungry, a little sister who couldn't let her have her moment. And maybe I am. But I didn't crash it. I was hired, signed, paid, delivered. I was there because she needed me, and that's the part no one can rewrite. She made me the villain. So I owned it. Owned it in every perfect plate, every flawless service, every dollar my business made because of her arrogance. She built the narrative, and I walked into it like a professional. Because at the end of the day, she wanted a perfect celebration without the people who made her feel small. But here's the truth. She wanted a perfect day without me. She got one with me front and center. Bon appetit.